everybody? Welcome to another video / podcast of the Dynasty Dweebs. Today I'm joined with Jim Brooks, and we're going to be discussing the Baltimore Ravens fantasy outlook. What's up?
See me at the bank.
Yes, sir.
The bank.
Big trust today. Big trust.
Oh, yes.
Let's talk it. As for anybody new listening or watching this video, we just went over the Browns, the Bengals, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we're going to finish it off with the Ravens till we move on to our next set of videos. We don't know if we're going to go into we're definitely not going to cover all the teams. Fans, well, I mean, we might get to it. I mean, shit, we still got 2 months, right?
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, so we'll discuss. But you want to start with Lamar?
Absolutely.
I would start with Lamar, right?
The number one QB.
Yep.
QB1, Lamar.
Lamar played 15 games, 265 completions off of 401 attempts, 66% completion rate percentage, 3,127 yards. Longest pass was 83 yards, 6 interceptions, 36 touchdowns. This was very flip-flopped. What do you say, Jim?
We'll
talk about his rushing when we get to the rushing category, but let's focus on his passing right now.
I mean, he had a phenomenal year passing the ball, and I think it's very underrated. I think people don't respect him as a passer still compared to more traditional quarterbacks, right. Obviously.
I could be one of those people.
I mean, his yards.
I'm still like, you know how I feel about, like, I ask people, you know, what's your opinion on Lamar? If by the time the Baltimore Ravens have to give him a contract, he hasn't won a playoff game. And they're all like, I don't really know what we would give him. But we don't give a shit about that, do we? We just care about his fantasy points.
Yeah, the almost 500 he put up.
Yeah, really.
I mean, 36 touchdowns, 6 interceptions is phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the 3,127 passing yards is pretty low for a guy who's throwing that many touchdowns. You'd expect somebody like closer to 5,000 yards at that point, but he's just not a guy who's putting up 300 and 400-yard games super consistently or really often at all.
Yeah, I don't think we need to waste much time like talking about him because he's just both our QB2s, right, in our rankings, like
basically.
Yeah, Mahomes is my one. I'm not gonna let Lamar be my one. It's Mahomes. Sorry, Lamar.
And one thing about his interceptions too is, like, he threw 6, but it was across 3 games that he only actually he threw an interception.
Yeah.
He threw 3 in the away game against Pittsburgh, 2 against Cleveland, and then 1 at Buffalo.
So the biggest concern with him, right, is the injury. Like, he hasn't had an injury, but like people are.
I mean, that's what people are worried about.
They're projecting it. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Kind of crazy to think about, though. So Lamar last year came in week. What week did he come in? I can't remember. In 2018 when he was a rookie, I forget.
Oh, 2018. He didn't really play till the playoffs, right?
He played a little bit before that, but
okay.
What I'm saying is,
and
like,
he was trash. I remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
But think about it. Okay. How many games in the regular season in 2018 did he actually play is what I'm trying to figure out, because he had 147 rushing attempts in 2018 and 176 in 2019. That's really not that big of a jump.
Here's the thing, right? Like, the team in 2018 was made it was still Joe Flacco. But in the offseason, they made it around Lamar.
100%.
And that's why it's working out so well right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I don't know what to really say about him. Like, he's a great – if you have him in Dynasty, great. I don't know what you're doing for redraft value because he's going to be drafted way too high, I think. He's going to have a lot of regression this year. I'm not saying he can't finish. I'm not saying he can't finish number one quarterback. I'm just saying I don't know if it's worth taking the risk at the position because I'm in the first place. I'm not taking Mahomes. I'm not drafting Mahomes in redraft anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Like last year, I took Lamarjackson towards the last round.
Yeah, and you can't do that anymore. Is
No,
what you're
you
saying?
can't do that anymore. It's like, and I'm just not a big like I said, I took him in the last round last year. He was my QB for the whole season. I'm just not that big on taking a quarterback early in redraft.
I can totally understand that, but and the fact that his value is so high, and then there's that assumption that there's going to be a big drop off is fair.
I'm not assuming a
I don't.
big drop off. I'm just assuming regression. Like it's going to be almost impossible. Like Christian McCaffrey is going to have regression. It's just normal. Like they could still, dude, they could still finish number one and not put up that many points.
But
Put
they're
as many
not going to
points
put
up.
up. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
but it's
all.
always possible he could.
Dude, he
I
could
mean,
he could have better. Yeah, I'm just saying
he
the
could end up
odds.
throwing for 4,000 yards and then having.
Sure, I'm just saying statistically it would look towards regression.
I agree with that.
But
It's fair.
Lamar is my QB2. If you want to draft him, redraft, cool. You have an awesome quarterback, awesome fantasy quarterback for the year. You're set on quarterback as long as he stays healthy. That's your call.
Mm-hmm.
I just wouldn't personally. I would rather wait, and there's tons of other quarterbacks you can get.
Mm-hmm.
And redraft running back is a very important position. Every position is important, but I really focus on running back in redraft.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move on from Lamar for now. We're not talking about RG3. There's really no point. Let's start. We'll start with the rushing. So let's go over Lamar's rushing real quick too. 176 rushing attempts, 1,200 yards. He had 7 rushing touchdowns, 8 fumbles. That's concerning, but
Yeah, I feel like he didn't actually fumble as like. I don't remember him
I
fumbling.
don't
It
remember
feels
all
like he
those
didn't
either.
fumble that many times.
Maybe a lot of snaps were fumbled. Well, actually, I don't think that would go under that. I don't know.
No, I don't really remember him fumbling that much, but I mean, I believe this stat, obviously.
Yeah,
It's just
so
like he had such a
are you,
dominant year that you
are
kind of
you going to
overlook it, I guess.
say his attempts are going to be higher or lower? He's averaging 6.9 yards per carry. He literally had more rushing yards than Mark Ingram.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say? More attempts or less attempts?
Well,
I would say they're going to try to keep him between the 125, 150 range.
I think there's kind of just certain games where it's just working well and they can utilize it because if he's throwing the ball well and he doesn't need to run, he doesn't need to run. That's shown in certain games where he was throwing more touchdowns. He didn't really.
Anything above 100 attempts in fantasy perspective is really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't even worry about the attempts regressing. But do you think it'll be
No,
less?
I think it's really kind of hard to say because 176 is basically like what 11 a game, give or take. Yeah, that seems like a fair amount realistically for him. If I think you could, let's just kind of say he ends up being at like 10 a game and it's 160. I think that's fair.
Okay.
So 150 to 160.
The same thing, most likely. Close to.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I mean, that's where he gets all his value from. So it's gonna have to.
Oh yeah.
You're right. He passed for a lot of touchdowns, but I mean, his passing yards wasn't out of this world, was it? I mean, it's
no, it's 3,100.
Yeah.
But then again, passing yards necessarily doesn't always equate to a whole lot of points.
No, yeah, I know. It's the touchdowns and his rushing touchdowns. I mean, he had a total of 43 touchdowns this year.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
It was a great year.
All right. Let's start dissecting this backfield. That's an absolute mess.
Oh yeah.
Mark Ingram is on his last year of his deal, I'm pretty sure. It was a 2-year deal.
Yeah, I think it was a 2-year deal. I'm pretty sure.
So let's talk about him for redraft value. Dynasty value, you get what you get for him this year. They're not going to re-sign him. There's no way. 15 games played, 202 attempts, 1,000 yards, averaging 5 yards per carry, 10 touchdowns. Awesome season for Mark
and then
Ingram.
5 receiving, and he had 5 receiving touchdowns.
Yeah, awesome year for Mark Ingram.
I can't
God, this
imagine
is such a headache.
I can't imagine he has another 1,000-yard season. To be perfectly honest,
There's no way.
I mean, he barely got the 1,000 hump too. It was
And
only
Gus
18
Edwards
yards over.
Gus Edwards had 700 yards.
Gus Edwards is not to be slept on, but I think now he's going to be very underutilized in this offense.
Same. I think Mark Ingram still has another top 15 year.
I don't know about that. I think
top 20, or are you saying he's going to finish better than that?
No, I think he's going to be worse. I mean,
okay,
that's a lot of touchdowns too. That I think he's probably not. See, I don't know.
He's an RB2/3 for me. Touchdown upside. Gus Edwards, I can't even give advice on Gus Edwards. I'm not.
You can't really. There's nothing to do with him this year because he's a second or third option at this point.
Yeah,
because I think they're going to end up.
He's just real estate.
Dobbins.
They're trading him for something.
Oh yeah, he probably can have decent value too because he's a good player, and he's only going into his 3rd season.
Unless they're gonna just cut Ingram next year, like not re-sign him, and then put Gus in Ingram's kind of role for change of pace.
Gus
in my opinion,
though, 6'1", 238.
In my opinion, Dobbins is going to be like they're going to have a 3-down back in Baltimore.
100%.
And then Justice Hill is just the change. He's like Giovanni Bernard or some shit. Like
he's a speed guy for them. That's what he really is.
He's just going to be the 3rd down, sometimes the 3rd down, and the 2-minute drill.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't really used much at all as a rookie, and being the 3rd option, now probably 4th option, you can't expect anything. It's just
like when you draft a player like J.K. Dobbins, it's just like you're going to use – I'm going to assume that J.K. Dobbins is going to end up being the guy.
There's no point in using that high of a draft pick on somebody if you're not going to utilize them.
Exactly.
And I mean, with the limited carries Justice did have, he didn't actually average anywhere near what Mark Ingram or Dobbins was averaging per carry.
Okay, so let's just recap.
3.8.
Let's recap this real quick. Mark Ingram, redraft value, RB2/RB3. Same thing for Dynasty, obviously, but he's pretty much done after this year.
Yeah,
Gus Edwards, I don't have any value for Gus Edwards in Dynasty or redraft, to be honest. Maybe a flex in a super deep league. Justice Hill, no value at all for me right now.
Yep.
Dobbins, great pickup in Dynasty if you're going to draft him. I love Dobbins. Especially it's just because he's on the Ravens. It's like if you're going to rave about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you should be raving about Dobbins being on the Ravens.
100%.
Yeah. Anything to add on to that about the backfield?
Patrick Ricard, big man.
Yes, he will take a touchdown or something this year, maybe. All right, let's talk receiving, and let's talk about Derneve first. They drafted Derneve.
Duvernay.
How do you think he falls into this team?
So
they have a lot of guys that can just play. They can play football, but they're not anything elite.
I think what's going to happen, and I think other people have different views on this too. So we have the outright number 1 in Baltimore is Hollywood Brown. Everyone has that assumption that he's their guy.
Well, is it him or is it Mark Andrews?
Okay, we're talking receivers. Tight end, it's completely different. Yes, Mark Andrews is their number 1 target.
Okay.
But if you're talking straight out wide receivers, you have Marquise Brown as their number 1 wide receiver. Number 2 at this point is kind of a toss-up. You could argue it could be Willie Snead, but he doesn't really get involved. He's just kind of here, let's get a first down guy and get him the ball. But
just him and then Boykin, right? Yeah.
Boykin and They also drafted James Proche. I forget.
So
He looks like he'll probably be a kick return, punt
the
returner.
door's wide open for Dernave to be the number 2.
I agree with that. However, I think what's going to happen is that Miles Boykin is going to take the second receiver kind of role on the team, and that Duvernay is going to kind of be what Miles Boykin was his rookie year, also being very limited. Boykin only had 22 targets, 13 receptions as a rookie. So I think Duvernay is going to be in a very limited role. However, they are two kind of completely different receivers, with Miles Boykin being a super tall 6'4" and Duvernay 5'11". So they have different strengths on the field and they can be utilized differently. But I would expect Miles Boykin to take a bigger jump, and then maybe Duvernay would be another guy you see in 2 to 3 years down the line who kind of might find some value.
Yeah, I look at it as I'm not interested in Boykin, Sneed. I'm only interested in Duvernay for dynasty purposes only.
See, but that's exactly that's something I always kind of gripe about with rookies is like, just because it's a new guy on the team, everyone kind of thinks they're going to have value no matter what. That's not always true. Like Miles Boykin is a second-year player. He was just a rookie.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. I didn't see. I mean,
I understand
didn't have
what
a
you're
good
saying.
season.
I understand that completely. But you have to let guys kind of develop into what they're going to be. You can't just judge them off their first year.
He had 13 receptions.
I understand that, but that's because they didn't really utilize him much.
I mean, Willie Snead's being utilized a lot more than him.
Yeah, he was, because he's a more consistent guy.
But at the end of the day, it's like I don't even think Dernave is going to matter either. It's just there's only going to be enough volume to make Hollywood and not Hayden Hurst. Hollywood and Mark Andrews have value anyways.
I agree with that 100%.
This team runs the ball too much, so it's just like.
And it looks like, let's say you're using guys that are bigger for blocking. I think Boykin's going to get the nod over Duvernay in that.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So I don't really see the Ravens in the way that their offense is constructed now having much value for receivers besides Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews.
Hollywood, he's still like, I don't even know if he's a wide receiver. I think 2.
I don't necessarily think he's going to be phenomenal in this offense.
Yeah,
because he's kind of like realistically. Now I know he was hurt a lot of last year too, so you kind of
that's what they
have to understand that. I mean, you kind of just believe it at this point. But
he had 7 touchdowns.
He's pretty.
I'll give him that.
I mean, he's almost kind of boom bust-esque if you really think. I mean, he is that kind of player. He's the deep threat. So is he just a better Robbie Anderson in that sense?
I'll just give him more value because he's so young, and him and Lamar have a good rapport right now.
Yeah, I think they have a really nice kind of friendship building there.
You know, everyone says like, "Oh, dude, he's working out." I mean, he is working out. He's getting really big. His size is immensely changing. You know, so maybe. I mean, I think he has really great upside potential. Would you rather have him or Calvin Ridley?
No, I think everyone in the fantasy community is like very poised to see Calvin Ridley have this amazing year. Because it's kind of like that thing with receivers when it's the third year, they just kind of rise to the top. I don't think Ridley is going to have a complete breakout while Julio's still there still. But I think you would take Calvin Ridley over Marquise Brown.
I guess a better question is Hollywood or Terry McLaurin?
I think Terry, just because he's going to have...
Do you take the guy with more skill or the guy who's on the better team?
At this point, Terry.
Yeah, I agree.
But later in this season, you could see a change in that very easily.
For sure. So that's pretty much all of that, actually. Let's talk a little bit about Dobbins a little more. Do you think he's gonna emerge as the number one guy in the backfield at one point in this year. I don't know what they're
Not
doing
this
with
year.
preseason games with COVID.
Yeah,
So
who
that
knows
kind
what's
of
going to happen
sucks.
with
I think
that.
they're gonna have like 1 or 2 now. I don't know.
I think for
Dude,
this year,
quickly while we're on the topic of COVID though. Like, if they're getting tested like weekly, right?
mm-hmm.
And if they test positive, then they have to sit out for 2 weeks, right?
I mean, I'm not very sure on all the kind
Most
of
likely
rules and regulations, but I mean,
that's
I know that's like the 2-week incubation, like
yeah.
kind of
So like, dude,
quarantining.
it's gonna be really interesting, like how much depth is gonna come in this year on fantasy
I mean,
teams.
I will let you. So, like, you know how like all the other sports are kind of just off topic, but
Yeah,
all the
what's
other sports
soccer
are going.
doing? And like,
So MLS, they're doing like a World Cup format tournament called MLS is back. It's just like and these
yeah,
games are supposed to count towards the regular season because the MLS season got suspended after only 2 weeks of like a 34.
yeah.
So everyone's going to Orlando, like all these other sports are doing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's supposed to start. I think next week. I think it's in like 7 or 8
But
days.
have they said anything about like getting
Well,
tested?
okay. Here's what I'm saying. It's either 26 people, like staff and players combined, have tested positive for coronavirus while being in Orlando. So a lot of people are actually thinking now the tournament might just get canceled as a whole season. It's kind of up in the air still because it's like you have this bubble, and that was how it was supposed to be a super contained thing,
I know.
and people are already contracting it. So
Yeah.
and Orlando or in Florida, I mean, is kind of becoming a hot spot again. So
Hey man, make sure you get your depth in fantasy this year. It's gonna be interesting, I think.
but yeah, for Dobbins though, I will say I don't expect him to be a year one guy emerging. He'll be a year 2 and beyond. Once Mark Ingram probably doesn't resign, goes somewhere else. So,
But like, when do you think he starts getting involved? Midway through?
I mean, he'll be instantly used. It'll just
Okay.
be a limited kind of
But it's only
like
as limited as how he plays. If he's
that's
balling out,
fair.
if he's
I
balling
mean,
out, he gets the role.
I wouldn't even like think about it. Gus Edwards, who didn't have a bad year, he had 133 attempts as a backup.
Yeah, I
They
know.
find
Like,
ways.
also the problem is like, if it's all just gonna be, it depends how each guy plays. That's what it's
Yeah,
gonna be. It's
I mean,
probably gonna be a hot hand backfield.
I wouldn't be surprised that Dobbins hits 100 attempts and then Edwards drops a decent share of his attempts,
I mean,
and
he could still be at 100. Mark Ingram could drop like to 150, dude. It depends
that's
how many
also
times
yeah,
Lamar's
that's
gonna
very
run the
fair.
ball.
Yeah, I'm sure they're gonna like kind of squeak things around and get all these guys involved because they're too talented not be utilized.
All right, let's end this with a little bit of will it happen or will it won't happen action.
Just gonna say fuck Mark Andrews. I get it.
Oh my god, I'll put a question in there about him. All right, Lamar Jackson, will he finish top 5 QB?
Of quarterbacks or just in general?
Quarterbacks.
Yeah, he will.
All right,
I'm sure.
Mark Ingram, top 15 standard.
No.
Damn. Dobbins, top 20.
No.
Okay. So none of their running backs are finishing in the top 20.
I think it's kind of hard to. I think it's pretty hard to say one will be
okay
top 20 guy. I mean, I could see it happening, but
quickly on Mark Andrews. Quickly, he had 10 touchdowns, 852 yards off 98 targets and 64 receptions. He's a great tight end. He's going to finish top 5 again this year. He will.
Mm-hmm. As long as he's healthy. Yep.
Right. He does have a couple lurking injuries, and Nick Boyle is not going to play that much still.
Boyle, baby.
Yeah. And Hayden Hurst is gone, so
Yeah,
No,
it's
he
gonna
didn't
be.
even eat up that much volume as it was, anyways.
Mhm.
Okay, let's talk about the receivers. Hollywood Brown, top 15,
No,
top 20.
no,
So wide receiver 3, top 30.
yeah.
Yeah, I think people are a little too high on him right now. I don't know if
I
people
mean,
are that high on him, but I think he is still flex.
it's not even that I don't think he can't be that good. It's just there's
The
so many
volume,
other
yeah,
guys I
yeah.
think that are in better situations and whatnot.
Well, honestly, that's about it. There's not much to this team. I mean, it's the bulk is eaten up by like one guy.
Mm-hmm.
It just is what it is. When you got to, it's like Christian McCaffrey on
I
the
wouldn't even
Panthers
say
last year.
it's not even like receiving wise. None of these guys are having like it's a pretty it's split all around in a lot of places. It's not like one guy getting 30% of it or 40% and kind of
They just run the ball too
ridiculous,
much.
which is not a bad thing.
No, I mean
Other
it's
guys,
fine. You win games and certain
it's
players are
just the
doing
receivers
well.
are
Yeah.
hampered by it, but it is what it is.
No, I mean at the end of the day, I mean the fans don't give a shit about fantasy. It just they want to win the games. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got anything else to add? I mean, it's kind of weird. This was the most boring one out of the 4 in this division, but it's just pretty straightforward. It's all Lamarjackson and whatever running back decides to emerge and be the best this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's Mark Andrews' show also.
Yep.
I will say that if teams start doubling up on Mark Andrews, it will be interesting who emerges out of this. Hopefully, it is Hollywood.
I'm sure it will be.
Anything else to add?
Nah, it's
All
pretty
right.
simple, straight through with these guys.
Yeah. Thank you all for watching. Please like and subscribe. And get ready for our awesome video coming out on Friday after you watch this one. Peace.
Peace.